Well, thank you. I will try to be concrete. And we have all today reconfirmed our commitment to the two-state solution. And I do so myself also, obviously. But this has been our mantra for the past 30 years. And during that 30 years, we have seen actually no progress, no real progress towards a two-state solution. On the contrary, even during the time when in Israel there was still a government which was on paper committed to the two-state solution, nothing was done to make it possible. On the contrary, we have seen a deliberate extension of illegal settlements and other policies which are clearly intended, and this has been now for the last years quite clear, they are intended to make it impossible to implement a two-state solution. And that therefore we have to also work on the content of a two-state solution. And I think we should study and commend the work done by those who were behind the Berlin Initiative, Hiba Husseini and Yossi Beilin, working on the basis of the older Geneva Initiative, which was much easier, in quotation marks, work at the time when there were just a small amount of settlements in the West Bank. But now they have again formulated a plan for implementing a two-state solution. Now, whether it is realistic or not is an open question, but I think that we should all be also engaged in the work to make it a real possibility and see what it could look like. But I think that one element that we need to make this possible is to have also a clear understanding of what the alternative is. Because the alternative cannot be a continuation of the status quo, or rather the continuation eradicating Palestinians and the ongoing ethnic cleansing which we are witnessing in the region. That is not sustainable, that is not acceptable, and it will fall at the end of the day, but the human costs of that continuation will be enormous and unacceptable. So therefore we have to also make it clear and say that the only acceptable, viable alternative to the two-state solution is a single secular unitary state. And as we all know that in apartheid South Africa, they said this was impossible to dismantle apartheid, but it happened in the end because of the international pressure took the initiative. So it is not saying that we want to see that solution, single secular state. Now, I would personally, I do not like seeing Jewish states, Islamic states, or even Lutheran states anywhere. But if this is the solution, and if this is democratically arrived at by all parties, so be it. So, but a two-state solution, the only acceptable alternative is a viable unitary secular state. And saying this aloud is not taking away support from the two-state solution. It is actually the opposite. It is something that we need to make it clear to those who are now rejecting and sabotaging the two-state solution that they are inevitably working for a single unitary state, which they do not want. And I would say even Netanyahu understands this. I've had the opportunity of sitting opposite to him when he was previously first-time Prime Minister as Foreign Minister and asking, since he had an opposition which was working against the two-state solution, what is the alternative to the two-state solution? He said there is no alternative. We have to have a two-state solution. And that was Netanyahu then at the time. He's an opportunist who is only interested in staying in power. If staying in power entails accepting the two-state solution, so be it. It is up to, of course, the International Criminal Court and the Israeli justice system to see whether he can escape accountability or not. Of course, there are people in the Israeli government today, Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, who never will accept any two-state solution. But I believe that the majority of the Israeli people who today reject it will also be able to have to accept it when they realize that it is the only viable alternative to a two-state solution. So rejecting and sabotaging the two-state solution is working for the Zionist point of view, the worst possible solution. It is not the best possible solution, but if it is the solution that brings viable peace to the Middle East, we have to have it. And I will stress also that when we are working for a two-state solution, the Palestinian state has to be viable, genuinely sovereign and independent, not a de facto Bantustan, as was the Israeli idea still some years ago when they were engaged in the negotiations, and they never wanted to cede real authority to Palestinian independence. But that is the only possible way to have a two-state solution. So thank you.
Bravo.